Bruno Mars used to be the face of endless singles, incredible live performances, and unadulterated star power. Now, however, as he gets closer to 40, things appear to be completely different. His story has changed unexpectedly, going from chart-topping success to personal hardships and a career that isn't what it once was. Come along with us today as we dissect Bruno Mars's ascent, failures, and reality. For celebrity. Born Peter Jean Hernandez on October 8, 1985, Bruno Mars grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii, in a household where music played a central role in daily life. While most children his age were playing outside or watching cartoons, he was already surrounded by instruments, rehearsals, and performances, making his childhood unique. Peter Hernandez, his father, was Puerto Rican and Jewish, and he was born in Brooklyn, New York. In his professional life, he played percussion instruments such as bongos and congas. Born in the Philippines, his mother, Bernadette Bernie San Pedro Bayo, was a hula dancer and vocalist who relocated to Hawaii. Together, his parents established a home where song, rhythm, and stage presence were all important. Bruno was already standing on stage when he was only a toddler. Little Bruno joined the Love Notes, his father's family band, which played in Waikiki. His remarkable talent to mimic the king of rock and roll immediately made him famous as Little Elvis. He would perform Elvis Presley songs with a confidence and charm that astounded, while wearing a little jumpsuit and slicing his hair back. Audiences. At the age of 4, he was already the center of attention. Those who saw his family's performance were frequently taken aback by his ability to capture the spirit and mannerisms of Elvis. He became well known locally as a result. In 1992, Bruno even managed to make a brief appearance as a Little Elvis impersonator in the movie Honeymoon in Vegas. Hawaii's media outlets also noticed his talent. He was listed as one of the world's youngest Elvis impersonators in magazines and media. Life at home wasn't always simple, even though performance was a lot of fun. His family did not have a lot of money, and they had financial difficulties. Bruno has talked about how these difficulties strengthened his will to achieve. He could always escape to music, even in difficult times at home. It provided a feeling of direction and a dream to cling to. It was evident by the time Bruno was a teenager that he desired more than just local notoriety. Hawaii was an excellent place to start, but he knew the mainland offered the best prospects. He moved to Los Angeles at the age of 17, just after graduating from high school. For someone so young, it was a big decision, especially given he had little money and no clear strategy for success. But he brought years of expertise and an unwavering faith in his ability with him. Los Angeles's formative years were anything but opulent. Record companies rejected Bruno repeatedly because they were unsure on how to promote him. He was deemed too different by some. Others didn't think his style was right. In order to sustain himself, he took on menial jobs while pursuing his goal of being a musician. There were moments when he questioned whether he had made the correct decision because money was scarce. But he was determined not to give up. The world was about to learn Bruno's true identity, and despite all of these difficulties, his big break was only around the horizon. The songwriter who was having trouble. As a teenager, Bruno Mars believed that his years of playing in Hawaii would soon lead to stardom when he first arrived in Los Angeles. However, the music industry's actual state differed greatly from his fantasies. Record labels were unsure of how to handle him despite his desire, stage presence, and voice. Because they couldn't find a clear category to place him in, he had very few opportunities to take center stage. Bruno didn't give up and started working behind the scenes, doing everything he could to acquire a foothold. In order to survive during his early years in Los Angeles, Bruno seized each chance he could. Several labels rejected him, claiming he didn't fit their desired sound or appearance. Although that rejection hurt, it made him re-evaluate his perspective. Perhaps people might accept him as a lyricist if they weren't ready to embrace him as a performer, he realized. This change became his path to success. Bruno turned his attention to penning songs for other performers. There was no denying his knack for melody and memorable hooks. Many musicians searching for new material and producers took notice of it right away. In the beginning, he co-wrote songs for Flo Rida, Adam Levine, Sean Kingston, and Brandy. Bruno Mars was not well known at this point, and the majority of those who were listening to these songs were unaware of his identity. However, his standing as a lyricist was beginning to increase within the industry. At this point, Bruno got to know Philip Lawrence, a singer and songwriter with similar problems and aspirations. They chose to work together after they clicked right away. They quickly got in touch with Ari Levine, a producer and engineer. They dubbed themselves the Smeezingtons, a group of three that collaborated on songwriting and production. One of Bruno's career's most significant turning moments was this collaboration. As the Smeezingtons, the trio started collaborating with some of the most well-known musicians. Hits by musicians including Canon, B.O.B., Travie McCoy, and CeeLo Green were produced by them. With every initiative, they gained greater legitimacy and opportunities. B.O.B.'s Nothing on You was the group's breakout single in 2010. Bruno not only sung the hook but also co-wrote the tune. With a #1 ranking on the Billboard Hot 100 and Grammy nominations, the song was an enormous success. Although he was still laboring behind the scenes, millions of people were finally hearing Bruno's voice. Bruno appeared on the chorus of Travie McCoy's Billionaire, another hit song from that year that the Smeezingtons helped write. With these singles, Bruno demonstrated that he was more than simply a background songwriter. He possessed the voice and charm to take center stage. The world was becoming aware. Bruno had a great deal of rejection in the years preceding his breakthrough as a solo artist, even after his success with the Smeezingtons. He was informed early on by executives that he wasn't marketable enough to serve as an album's face. Due to the fact that his music combined pop, R&B, funk, reggae, and soul, some people were unable to classify it. His appearance and style, in the opinion of others, did not conform to the then-standard pop star mold. During those years, Bruno honed his skills rather than giving up. Writing for many artists gave him the chance to try out new genres, sounds, and structures. He researched what made songs resonate with listeners and used that knowledge to improve his own tunes. Bruno was discreetly getting ready to show the labels that he was not as marketable as they thought. In 2009, You Had Nothing. He sung the melodic, poignant chorus in addition to co-writing the song. As a global hit, the song peaked at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and remained there for several weeks. Along with being an economic triumph abroad, it topped charts in the UK and other nations. When many listeners heard Bruno's voice for the first time, it instantly caught their attention. The song was made memorable by his combination of warmth and force in the chorus. Bruno co-wrote and performed on the song Billionaire, which Travie McCoy released shortly after in 2010. Once more, he was featured on the chorus, delivering a humorous and catchy hook about wishing to live a luxurious lifestyle. The song became one of the summer's biggest singles, peaking at #10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Millions of people were already familiar with Bruno's voice, and his name was beginning to show up in music headlines everywhere. Because they demonstrated that he was more than just a behind-the-scenes writer, these two partnerships were significant. His charisma and singing ability made him a front-runner. Viewers realized that the same individual who was responsible for these hooks was capable of much more. When Bruno finally released his first solo single after years of waiting, it was a touching ballad about unwavering love and admiration. It soon gained international acclaim. For 4 weeks, the song remained at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 after debuting at #1. In a number of other nations, including the UK, Canada, and Australia, it also peaked at the top of the charts. The song became really popular. It sold millions of copies, was played non-stop on radio stations worldwide, and became a wedding favorite. It was, for Bruno, the final affirmation that he had made it as a solo performer. In addition to being a featured guest on someone else's song, he was also adored by the public as a solo star. Bruno's chart breakthrough coincided with the music industry's recognition of him. During this period, he received multiple Grammy nominations for his work. Just the Way You Are took home the Grammy for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance in 2011. Because it demonstrated that industry insiders and critics held him in the same regard as his admirers, this victory was a significant turning point. He established his image as a showman with his Grammy performances as well. Bruno's powerful voice, band, and innate ability to engage audiences were the foundation of his live performances, in contrast to many other musicians who mostly relied on production. His confidence on stage set him apart from many other up-and-coming performers, whether he was singing a ballad or an energetic tune. In October 2010, Bruno's first album, Doo-Wops and Hooligans, was made available. His upbringing and songwriting career had a wide range of inspirations, which were reflected in the album's pop, R&B, reggae, and soul blend. There were several different kinds of sound. Bruno's versatility was demonstrated by this compilation. Hits including Grenade, The Lazy Song, Marry You, and Count on Me were featured on the album, each one showcased a distinct aspect of his talent. In contrast to The Lazy Song, which was humorous and lighthearted, Grenade was a somber ballad about heartbreak. The song Marry You gained popularity as a wedding and proposal song. His softer side was showcased by the delicate acoustic song Count on Me. Doo-Wops and Hooligans sold millions of copies worldwide and was a commercial success. It charted well in a number of other countries and peaked at number 3 on the US Billboard 200 chart. Bruno was commended by critics for his ability to blend contemporary pop sounds with old-school inspirations. His music was adored by fans for its honesty and diversity. What many musicians strive for years, Bruno Mars had accomplished by the end of 2011. He was famous all around the world, had a Grammy, a best-selling debut album, and hits that topped the charts. After overcoming years of rejection and hardship in Los Angeles, he emerged as one of pop music's most significant new voices. Bruno would soon encounter difficulties that put his reputation and personal life to the test, but celebrity also brought with it new demands. Relationships with Bruno. The public's curiosity about Bruno's personal life increased along with his celebrity. Rita Ora, an actress and model, was one of the high-profile women he was associated with early in his career. But one particular relationship turned into the main plot point of his tale. A long-term relationship between Bruno and actress and model Jessica Caban began in 2011. Despite their infrequent appearances together at occasions, he has maintained a somewhat discreet relationship, in contrast to many celebrities. Bruno has talked a lot about how hard it is to strike a balance between personal privacy and celebrity. Keeping his personal life and career apart was difficult due to the media and fans' attention. Although the public wanted to know about his relationships, family, and way of life, he treasured seclusion. Nevertheless, Bruno was able to stay clear of a lot of the controversies that frequently befall celebrities with his level of notoriety. He would rather have his songs and performances take center stage. Additionally, his family continued to play a significant role in his life. When his mother, Bernadette, died in 2013 from a brain aneurysm, Bruno experienced sadness. The loss was heartbreaking, and he later acknowledged that it had permanently altered him. Her memories was with him nevertheless. He frequently attributes his passion for music to her. In addition to his chart-topping successes, Bruno Mars had established himself as a superstar, acclaimed for his style, showmanship, and capacity for self-control in the face of unceasing attention. However, as his notoriety increased, Bruno would soon experience problems and disappointments that put everything he had fought so hard to achieve to the test. Arrests and legal actions. Just when Bruno's celebrity was starting to soar, he suffered one of the first significant setbacks in his career in September 2010. At the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, he was arrested while celebrating the end of a show. He was discovered by police in a restroom with a tiny quantity of cocaine. Because Bruno had been establishing himself as a polished, positive performer who avoided bad conduct, people were taken aback by this news at the time. A charge of cocaine possession resulted from the arrest. Bruno accepted responsibility for his error and cooperated with authorities. He was mandated by the court to pay a fine, participate in drug counseling, and perform 200 hours of community service. He also had to avoid jail time by staying out of trouble for a whole year. Despite concerns that the arrest may jeopardize his budding career, Bruno managed the fallout with tact. In public, he expressed regret. Declaring it a bad choice, he pledged to concentrate on his music. He was able to restore his reputation really fast by accepting responsibility and meeting the conditions. His tracks continued to rise in the charts within months, and his admirers were eager to follow him. The episode is still one of the most talked about low times in his life, though. The second significant dispute involving Bruno occurred in 2014, but this time it was connected to one of his greatest achievements. Working with producer Mark Ronson, he wrote the classic tune Uptown Funk, which went on to become one of the decade's most popular songs. The song sold millions of copies worldwide, received numerous Grammy Awards, and topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 14 weeks. However, as it gained popularity, there were claims that it was overly influenced by older R&B and funk tunes. In litigation, a number of groups claimed that Uptown Funk had plagiarized portions of their work. The Gap Band, a funk band from the 1970s, said that the song's beat and vibe were too similar to their song Oops Upside Your Head. This was the most noticeable occurrence. After a settlement, the members of the Gap Band were eventually listed as credited writers on the song. Another round of criticism was directed against Bruno Mars in 2018. As a result of cultural appropriation. Bruno is of Filipino, Puerto Rican, and Jewish heritage. Some opponents said that, despite not being a member of that culture, he was making money off of African American musical traditions including funk, soul, R&B, and hip-hop. After his album 24K Magic, which was heavily influenced by black music from the 1980s and 1990s, won multiple Grammy Awards, the controversy intensified. With one viral video accused Bruno of stealing black culture to further his career, online debates became heated. Given that Bruno has collaborated with many black musicians over his career and had always been transparent about his influences, many fans stood up for him. They maintained that his song was not exploitative but rather in homage. However, discussions over representation, ownership, and authenticity in the music industry were spurred by the claims. Because it went right to the core of Bruno's reputation, the dispute was detrimental to him. He was always praised for using his music to make people happy and nostalgic, but now some were wondering if that happiness came at the expense of other people. Even though the argument ultimately died down, it left a legacy that served as a reminder to him of how quickly public opinion can change. Despite Bruno's popularity as a musician, rumors of his financial difficulties also started to circulate. Despite his #1 singles, sold-out tours, and residencies in Las Vegas, there were rumors of growing indebtedness brought on by wasteful spending. Bruno had a reputation for living extravagantly, with parties, fancy cars, and residences driving up the costs. According to news sources, he had problems with taxes and running his company, which resulted in court cases and significant payments. According to some sources, despite his continued success, he owed millions of dollars. The fact that someone so successful could experience such difficulties was difficult for followers to comprehend. But in the entertainment sector, it demonstrated how easily money can disappear. Bruno was compelled by these issues to rely increasingly on residencies in Las Vegas, where steady performances brought him steady revenue. Even though residencies are lucrative, many people view them as a step down from the pinnacle of mainstream celebrity, leading to conjecture that his options were constrained by his financial issues. Even though Bruno Mars had weathered legal issues, lawsuits, criticism, and financial difficulties, his carefully cultivated reputation was damaged by each scandal. And as the setbacks mounted, it became unclear if Bruno would be able to maintain his superstar glow or if the stress of everything would finally cause it to fade. A Star's Decline. 24K Magic, Bruno's third studio album, was released in 2016. The project was a vibrant, boisterous ode to R&B, funk, and party culture of the 1990s. Songs like Finesse, That's What I Like, and 24K Magic took over radio and streaming services right away. Glitzy, upbeat, and made for both dancing and singing along, the CD seemed like a whole package. 24K Magic was a huge success. Stadiums and arenas all over the world sold out as Bruno started his world tour. The audience gave his band, dancing, and stage presence high marks. The Hooligans were producing one of pop music's greatest live performances. Bruno's reputation as a showman was now flawless. And the industry rewarded him. In 2018, 24K Magic won all of the major Grammy Awards. Among other awards, he took home Album of the Year, Record of the Year, and Song of the Year. During the decade, it was one of the most prominent Grammy evenings. It represented Bruno's pinnacle of fame and demonstrated that both critics and admirers viewed him as the full artist. However, 24K Magic also served as a metaphor for the pinnacle of his career in many respects. His triumph was so great that it begged the question of what he could do next. Following the 24K Magic frenzy, Bruno took a lengthy hiatus from solo music releases. He eventually made a comeback, but it was for a new project. He formed the duo Silk Sonic in 2021 with Anderson .Paak. Their joint hit, Leave the Door Open, was a smooth, soulful ballad that brought back memories of R&B groups from the 1970s. The song became well known right away, rising to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 at launch and receiving acclaim for its production and singing. Fly As Me and Smokin' Out the Window were among the other songs on Silk Sonic's follow-up album, An Evening with Silk Sonic, which won Grammy Awards and highlighted Bruno and Anderson's artistic synergy. Both reviewers and admirers praised the craftsmanship. It was a well-made, nostalgic, and smooth album. However, others thought it relied too much on vintage styling. Bruno was always referencing earlier genres, but Silk Sonic's sound seemed entirely nostalgic. For some, this was genius and artist refining and revitalizing ancient techniques. Others said Bruno relied too heavily on the past instead than pursuing something fresh, and it felt like overkill. Bruno's earlier solo work had a greater cultural impact than Silk Sonic, despite its success. In contrast to 24K Magic, it did not dominate the charts or garner the same level of international attention, while winning accolades and respect. Following Silk Sonic, Bruno Mars' recording career took a further hiatus. In contrast to his early years, when he appeared to have a new smash on the charts all the time, Bruno fell silent. Fans have been waiting years for new material from him since he didn't release a solo album since 24K Magic in 2016. A gap this large allowed emerging performers to easily gain attention in a fast-paced music business. Bruno started giving live performances, particularly his residencies in Las Vegas, more effort rather than concentrating on new music. These performances gave him the opportunity to keep entertaining audiences and making a consistent living. Although he had a well-reviewed and successful residency at places like the Park MGM, residencies are frequently seen as an indication that an artist's days of topping international charts are over. Bruno was playing older songs for crowds who wished to relive his earlier triumphs rather than traversing the globe with brand new hits. This change was a sea change. Bruno Mars was still regarded as a talented performer, but it appeared that his career had slowed. The constant energy that had propelled him from one blow to the next was gone. It gave way to a more subdued and steady pace. Fans also started to wonder what Bruno Mars's current life was like as time passed. Bruno Mars today. Bruno Mars is getting close to 40 years old, and his career has changed significantly from the early years when he seemed to control the music business. Previously one of pop's most dependable hitmakers, he has become much more subdued in recent years. The steady stream of new songs, accolades, and international tours has paused, leading many fans to wonder what happened to the chart-topping artist. It appears that Bruno is becoming less interested in following trends as he ages. He doesn't feel like the formidable force he once was. And because of this change, a lot of people believe he is losing attention. The silence is remarkable for a performer who constructed his career on being everywhere at once. Bruno has primarily performed in Las Vegas over the past few years rather than touring the world. He has long held residencies at prestigious locations including the Park MGM, where his performances are well liked by crowds and frequently praised in reviews. Bruno still gives his supporters what they want. He had the same charisma that made him renowned, along with powerful singing and precise dancing. However, residencies have a different reputation than foreign tours. They are financially lucrative, dependable, and consistent. However, they also represent a decline from international superstardom. Many people believe that after their days of consistently making the top of the charts are over, artists go to Las Vegas residencies. Even while Bruno continues to give outstanding performances, the platform seems smaller than the global arena he once dominated. In the background, there have been rumors that Bruno's dependence on residency is related to his financial difficulties. Despite his enormous success, he has been accused of excessive spending and growing tax debts. His expensive lifestyle, fancy cars, and residences might have caught up with him. Even while precise figures are hard to verify, the rumors have been persistent enough to influence how the general public views him. It seems unexpected for someone who has sold millions of records and performed in sold-out arenas to experience financial difficulties. But there are plenty of examples in the music industry of celebrities losing control of their fortune, and Bruno is not exempt from rumors. The implication that he is relying on consistent income from Las Vegas to pay off debts has strengthened the perception that his career is not as stable as it once seemed. Bruno's withdrawal from the spotlight contributes to his more sedate existence today. In contrast to his early career, when he was frequently featured in interviews and the media, he now maintains a far more quiet profile. His health may have suffered as a result of years of performing non-stop, according to some theories. Bruno has not disclosed many details, but even the most resilient performers can become exhausted by touring, practicing, and performing at the high level of intensity for which he is renowned. Additionally, Bruno has been increasingly secretive about his personal life lately. Though they avoid the spotlight, he and Jessica Caban have been together for a long time. Because of this retreat, he has become more difficult to follow, which furthers the impression that he has distanced himself from the society that formerly openly praised him. Many admirers find it dramatic how Bruno Mars has changed from then to now. With a career based on vigor and inventiveness, he was once the epitome of happiness, self-assurance, and showmanship. Some people now view him as a waning star who depends on his previous hits and nostalgia to sustain his career. Although he still performs brilliantly live, his performances are driven more by songs from his best years than by brand new material. Rather of influencing pop music like he once did, Bruno is now making do with the foundation he established years ago. His career is now primarily sustained by nostalgia. For an artist who looked unstoppable at one point, this may seem like a dismal reality. For more videos like this, remember to like and subscribe if you liked this one.